gamers! I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be journeying across Middle-earth, specifically the land of Eriador. Yes, I remembered the name. As we play the first campaign, yes, we played the entire campaign for Journeys in Middle-earth. Now, I'm going to toss it over to Julie, and she's going to tell you more about the game itself. But just a second. I almost neglected something.
Who's it designed by?
Exactly. It's designed by Nathan Hajek and Grace Holdinghaus. And as with most of the Lord of the Rings games, but not all of them, it is published by Fantasy Flight Games. Go ahead, Julie. Take it away.
It's a cooperative game that's for 1 to 5 players, for ages 14 and above, and I think that's a good age for this one. Not that it has very mature content, but there's a lot of moving pieces, I would say, and a lot of little rules and things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a component-heavy game. If you do have experienced gamers, definitely younger gamers would be able to play the game fairly easily.
So it's a 60-minute game also, and I would say it's definitely 60 minutes, and in a couple...
I'd say 90.
I was going to say a couple times it took us 90 minutes.
It's definitely 60 to 90 minutes. Now, what are you going to be doing in the game? Well, first of all, this is an app-assisted game. No app, no game. Meaning you're going to need to use your laptop or tablet, phone. You need something to control the enemies and certain features of the game. Now, this is an exploration game and an adventure game. What will happen is you're going to start off on a specific map tile. You're then going to move and explore different areas of the map, interact with people, search tokens, threat tokens, as you try to complete your objective before the threat meter reaches its maximum level. And threat is a very big part of the game. Now, I think I've talked enough about the game. What do you think, Julie?
I think it's time to take it to the table.
Time to take it to the table? All right, well, we're going to take it to the table, and we're going to do a very in-depth how to play of the game. Going to be cutting back and forth between showing you the table and the app. First time doing this, that's why I just want to preface it. Hopefully it's going to work the way I want it to, but we'll see. So what's the time now?
Time to grab our drinks.
Grab our drinks. Grab our best friend. And you already said it, but...
We're going to take it to the table.
So, who are you going to be?
Well, I already know what characters there are, but I wish there was the female elves, because I really didn't find that there were that.
Well, there was. Elena's a female elf, but I know you wanted Arwen, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Well, of course I'm going to be Aragorn. Aragorn. Potato.
Hey, there's a book called Aragon, and we don't do book reviews, but Aragorn is way better than Aragon.
Okay.
Now we're going to take a look at the components for Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth. As you can see, this is a component-heavy game. In front of me, we've got all of the hero-related components, as well as the miniatures and some of the stuff for the villains and damage. There are plenty of components they don't have on camera, so I will start with those. Let's take a look. And of course, we have the Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, Learn to Play. So there's a quick Learn to Play guide, which is one of the new things that FFG does. It does have a quick reference guide on the back of it as well. There is also, of course, the full rulebook, which will provide you with everything that you need to learn the game and the more in-depth rules. It also has the quick reference guide on the back. Now, not the biggest fan of the rulebook. The reason for that is I don't think that things were very well presented in certain cases, but they do a good job to teach you the rules overall. Now, here we've got what are known as the battle maps. Now, these maps are just basically square. You've got 2 different sides with the forest and then the rock. It's made up of 5 different squares. The reason why I'm showing you these is because we're going to look at the journey tiles as well. There are 2 different types of maps in the game. And we do have some components that are specific to the 2 different types of maps. So when you're on a battle map, you may see things like a fire pit, which also doubles as a statue. We've got the pits as well as the mist tokens that will be placed on the journey map. You then have, of course, tables and barrels. Once again, so you can see these things are double-sided. We also have the boulder or a bush, depending on how you place it. And then the rivers and, streams and walls that can potentially block off certain sections of the map. If you want to know what all those things do, we have a nice set of reference cards. The app will also tell you what each of those things do, and that's the back of those reference cards. Now that we took a look at those, let's take a look at the tokens and the journey tiles. Now the journey tiles are hexagonal. They are all double-sided, showcasing different things. You might see water. Here you've got underground caves, which are in darkness. There are also darkness tokens, which I don't have out here, that you can use when you need to remind yourself that your heroes are in darkness. And as you can see, also double-sided. So you get a nice variety of different hexagonal tiles. As you can see, in this case, you come into a base or hall. And overall, I really like the maps and the way they fit together. And as you'll notice, each of them are numbered with an A side and a B side. Right now we're looking at the B side, and there's the A side. The app is going to tell you which part of the map tile to place and how to install it. We've covered everything that I did not have on camera, so let's dive in and take a look at the heroes and, of course, the villains that we're going to be facing in Journeys in Middle-earth. Now, any of the main villains are going to be just using these different miniatures. So for example, here we've got a wipe. The app is going to tell you who is who, and that's one of the reasons why we've got these different banners. Now this is just a small selection of the banners. We've got the gray standard ones with their own symbols, and then these red elite ones. Now what I don't like, you can see a little bit at the top there, is these red banners are fraying already, and we've barely not barely played the game, we played a full run through, but I haven't had the game that long. In any case, back to the villain miniatures. No, I usually start with the heroes, feel like starting with the villains this time. So we've got White, which might also be a special hero like the main villain of the campaign. We've got Ruffians, which can also be used to symbolize heroes and villains. We've got the Orc Marauders. We've got the Goblin Scouts. The Hungry Wargs. What would a Lord of the Rings game be without some wargs in it? We have the Orcish Hunters, as you can see with their bow. And of course, a Cave Troll. Just have to have that in there. So these are the different minis. Now, there is no specific stats for them. That's why you don't see any enemy cards. Everything is controlled by the app itself. And don't worry, we'll show you what that looks like when we get into the how to play. So let's move on to the heroes and showcase the hero miniatures. Now we've got Beravor and Elena, two characters that I don't know, but are from the Tolkien fiction. They're not from the Lord of the Rings books themselves. And these are the new heroes that we get. So we've got Elena, who is an elf. And Elena is a musician. Well, at least that's what the game recommends you play her as. There's some interesting stuff you can do with multi-classing, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our review. We've got Beravor, who is a Pathfinder. You can see her miniature right here. Now, the one thing I don't like is I feel they should have done something a little bit cooler with these new characters, or potentially not had some of our more famous heroes to encourage people to play them, but we'll talk more about that in our review. We've got, of course, Aragorn, the future king, Gimli, Legolas, the fan favorite, and of course, the one who started it all, Bilbo Baggins. Now, each character has their own character card. If you flip it over, you'll get a little bit about the character history and background, their suggested starting role, and items. Now, we'll talk more about that in just a second. I want to talk a little bit about just some of the other tokens that we have as I'm trying to maximize my space. So these tokens we're going to be encountering as we venture across the journey map. As you can notice right here, you'll see the tokens. These are exploration tokens, which will then turn into inspiration, which you'll flip over, so inverse side, and they will go on your card. Very important. We also have these item depletion tokens, which are important for things like the old pipe that you can see here, which has a certain amount of times it can be used per adventure. We then have the threat and search tokens, which will go on the journey map, and these people tokens that are double-sided. Doesn't really matter which side you use. The app will tell you which one to use, though, just so you can keep them separate. Now, back to our heroes. So as we were talking about, each hero has their own set of cards. So as you can see right here, and we're not going to go all of them, through all of the cards. Bilbo has his own set of 5 cards. The same thing goes for Legolas, who has his own set of 5 cards. Same thing for Gimli, Aragorn, Elena, and Barivor. Now, each role also has their own set of 12 cards, and the way these roles work, you're going to start with the first, and it's quite clear, it's the first 5 cards of the deck. Well, you're going to start in your starting deck, and then as you level up, you're going to be able to purchase more of these cards. Now, I may be mistaken with the 5 cards that were in the how to play. I'm going to explain it, but it could just be the first 4 cards, or maybe even the first 3. Been a while since I set up the game. Julie and I have played through the full campaign. Don't worry about it, but in any case, this is the deck you're going to be using to level up. And you can also mix and match your cards, so you can level up in Hunter, switch roles, also level up in Musician or Pathfinder. Now, as you can see with the Burglar, we have some pretty sweet skills. And what's important to note is when you start the game, and we'll talk about how to play, you always have your level 1 role skill will be available. The other thing that everyone has is these basic cards, and every character starts with a set of 6 basic cards that are identical. So you're getting 5 sets of these 6 cards in the game. Now, just about covered everything here. The last thing that we need to cover really are these other sets of cards we got here, and then of course a little bit more about the items. So every deck also has to have a weakness in it. Now these are all the same, as you'll notice, at least for the moment. They just have some really cool art. I appreciate the art. That's why I got 3 of them. The game does tell you to add 1 in at the start of every adventure. You can really just leave 1 in. Now if we look at the items that you can acquire during your adventure that you'll find, you'll notice that there's a level 1, 2, and 3 version. So as you go through the game, they'll potentially level up. And some items and weapons also have different versions of it. So as you can see with the Travel Garb, which is starting equipment for multiple characters, that's why you get 2 of the starting ones. You can take it all the way up from the Travel Garb to the Greenwood Garb, Westmarch Garb, Everbloom, Wanderer's Wish. Sorry, I choked on that a little bit. And all of them have different abilities, and you can really use it to customize your character. Same thing goes for weapons. As you can see, you can start with a Great Bow, then upgrade it to the Mirkwood Bow. Then when you finally get a chance to upgrade to the level 3 bow, you've got 2 choices. Now, we'll talk more about this stuff and how they work when we get into the how to play. We've covered everything now except for the damage and fear. Now, as you'll notice on your character cards, and I'm just a little bit remiss to mention it, you do have stats: might, wisdom, agility, spirit, and wit. You'll be testing these different skills, and we'll explain that in how to play. Here we've got fear and damage, and a maximum amount that your character can take before having to perform a last stand. Now, when you are dealt fear or damage, as it tells you to deal the damage face down, meaning you don't have to resolve the effects, you take it face up. And some cards may be as simple as flip this card face down. So you can see this one that says flip 1 damage face up, and then you have to resolve its effects. Then flip this card face down. Or something such as keep this card face up. And fear cards look like this. And that's what the damage symbol is. And you can see with damage cards, it can be simple like flip this card face down. Or you have to flip 1 damage and 1 fear face up. Then you get to discard the card, meaning you don't have to keep it. Or it can even make you suffer 1 fear as well with Feeble, and then you get to flip the card face down. So fear, damage, it's not a joke. You really have to pay attention to it and manage it throughout the game. There we go. I know this was a fairly long look at the components, but as you can see, this is a components-heavy game. So now what I'm going to do is get out of here, and we're going to start setting up the game and teaching you guys how to play. As I was setting up the how to play, I realized I neglected to showcase the titles and the boons, and also realized this gave me an opportunity to dive a little bit more into detail on the battle map. So that's what I'm going to do. So for example, on the battle map, you're going to be moving around to engage and fight enemies such as the white we have here. Now, streams will do different things, but it does essentially limit your opportunities to get to these two squares. You could also have walls, for example, that would completely block your access to these two squares, meaning your hero would have to move around to access that. Now, boulders can do different things like providing cover. Same thing for bushes, statues, the other elements. You may even have to interact with people tokens on these battle maps. There are 5 squares. They are double-sided. And we'll just take everyone off right now. You've seen a little bit how a battle map works. And I'm showcasing it because we're not going to see it in the how to play. We're just not going to cover it because of need to get there in the campaign. And we're just really going to start at the beginning. And overall, it's fairly simple. You can also have the other side, this cavern side of the battle map that will happen in other scenarios. Or you might even have a combination of both. Now let's move on to talk about the boons and titles. Now there are 3 different boons that can be gained. Embolden, which will be lost if there are no enemies nearby. But it does let you do some massive damage. Determine lets you get some additional cards when you're trying to get successes. Don't worry, we'll talk about that more in the how to play. You then also have Hidden, which can prevent damage. There are even some cards that can let you start the game with the boon of Hidden. Now, when we're looking at titles, you do see some things that harken back to The Hobbit with Stinging Fly and Barrel Rider. But what they are is that they are specific events that will happen in the campaign that will give a character that title. So let's say Aragorn gets a magic weapon made for him. He may become the Flame Bearer, meaning that he can then use this card once he's prepared it. Don't worry, it all makes sense in the how to play. And the title would have to be removed from the adventure. The reason why I'm spending time on it now is probably not going to get to it, just covering the basics of how to play. So you remove it from that adventure, but you'll get it back to use again in the following adventure. So these are cool one-time use cards that also give you the potential to gain some successes while you're playing the campaign. Now, that being said, we've covered the stuff that I missed, and we're going to be moving on to teach you how to play the game. Now, let's take a look at how you set up Journeys in Middle-earth. Now, we will jump over and use the iPad, and I will be screen capping the iPad, so you'll see some jumping back between the camera that's top-down and then the iPad itself once we get going. But we're going to teach you how to set up everything else and then move on to what you're going to need to do with the app. So some of the things that we're going to have prepared but off camera, you're going to want to have your person tokens, have these readily available. You're going to need a lot of the exploration/inspiration tokens, so make sure that those are available as well. Item depletion tokens are good to have around, but you may not need them in the first adventure. Make sure that you have all of the different flags and, well, not flags, banners for the villains available nearby, because depending on what the app decides, that's the one that you're going to need to use. And of course, we are journeying, we're exploring, so you will need threat and search tokens. So make sure you have a lot of those handy. Then what Julie and I like to do is sort the tiles a little bit. So as you can see here, we've got the tiles in the 200s, just all in a neat stack that we're keeping off to the right. The 2 tiles that are 100s right here. And then the 400 tile with the 300s because there's only one of them. So keep all that stuff off to the right. Never know what tiles you're going to need. The game is generated randomly. Now, how do we set up our characters? And I'll just move Legolas next to his character board. He was trying to sneak off and get the game going. So we have our character board. What we need to do is build their deck of cards. Now, the way that's done is you're going to take the 5 character cards. So here we've got Bilbo 1 through 5. I'm going to put it face down right now. That's part of his starting deck. We've got Legolas 1 through 5 into his starting deck. Then I'm going to reach over here and just take the 6 basic cards that everyone has and throw those right into the starting deck. Now, each character has a recommended character class and starting items. We'll take those items on in a minute. So Bilbo is just his background right here. He's suggested to be a burglar and start with a dagger and cloak. So we'll place that down. As you can see, we've got the burglar class here. What you're going to do is you're going to take the 3 cards, as this is what you're going to be starting with. Now these other cards can be purchased later on in the campaign by leveling up. So for the moment, I'm going to move them off camera. We will not be seeing them during our how to play. Now you always prepare your roll level 1 card. So in the case of burglar, it's self-sufficient. I'm then going to take all of these cards and add in a weakness. Now, the game will tell you to remove a weakness after every adventure. Doesn't matter, because at the start of every adventure you need to add in a weakness. So you can always just leave 1 weakness in your deck. Anything above that you get rid of between adventures. So we've now gone and shuffled up Bilbo. Now we need to prepare Legolas, so we're going to take his resourceful skill, and this skill tells you that after you prepare it, you gain 1 inspiration. So before I shuffle up Legolas's deck, we're going to get him set up, and I'm going to add an inspiration token to his board. We then shuffle up his deck, and we're just about ready to dive into the app. But don't forget, you're definitely going to want to have your villain miniatures nearby as well, because you never know what you're going to be facing on your adventure. So off to the right, as you can see, we've got the wargs, we've got the whites, we've got everyone. We are ready to go. Now, the last thing that we need is our equipment. So we're going to prep the equipment, dagger and cloak, and then for Legolas, it is great bow and cloak. Now, I may move the equipment, change the positioning a little bit, but it's good enough to show you how to play. Also, almost forgot, need to get that weakness into Legolas's deck. We'll get that all nicely shuffled in. Make sure that you have your boons nearby as well. And don't forget to have your damage and fear. Now, I don't have everything nearby, but I have most of it. One thing I do want to highlight quickly, you might notice the cards are getting a little frayed. So I have sleeved everything just to protect the game. Now, let's cut over to the app and let's see what we're going to need to do to set up a campaign. So we're going to start by pressing New Game. We then select the campaign. So right now there's only 1 campaign. Select the difficulty. We can pick normal or hard. And for this case, we're going to select normal. We're going to then pick our save slot. As you can see, Julie and I's completed campaign on normal is there. So we're going to pick a new save. We're going to select our heroes. So we're going to start with picking the man himself, Legolas and Bilbo. We are good to go. We then select our starting items. So these can be changed. So it just gives you an idea as to what you can change up. You can even change starting weaponry. But for the case of this, we're just going to leave it as is. We'll then select the party name. And just for fun, I'm going to call it Hobbits. And then we're ready to begin the campaign. So we get a nice introduction to the Bones of Arnor with some great audio, as you can hear. Well, not necessary here, but in any case, I'm going to skip through this because I really want to get onto the setup. So we're just going to hit Embark. I'm going to embark in the campaign. So you can see the first chapter, A Shadow in Eriador, Chapter 1. Continue on. We get the setup for the Shadow in Eriador. We can save and quit right away, but we're going to hit continue and get into the campaign. Now, we get to pick the roles of the different characters. In this case, Legolas is starting as Hunter, as we've shown, and Bilbo as Burglar. We then are ready to embark. So the campaign is now in the process of loading. And we get some nice flavor text. We have the threat meter across the top, which if it does hit 64, we will lose the campaign. And we've got some other controls that we'll show. So, somewhere amid this maze of dark thickets and steep gullies, the band of thieves now hides. Your direction is informed by a set of tracks from 2 days ago, and you can only guess the location of the thieves' lair. So we're going to continue on. And as you can see, we're getting instructions onto how to place the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a second here, and I'm going to set up the board a little bit. And we're going to cut over to the board camera away from the iPad, and then we'll cut back to the iPad when I think it's necessary. So we need to find tile 302. You got a mess of tiles here, and the app said 302A. So we're going to place 302A out, doing our best to match the app. Now, it can get a little unwieldy, so just keep that in mind. Now we're cutting back over to the app just to show you where the heroes go. And we're going to place our heroes in that starting location. And then they do what is known as scout. So as we're scouting, we're going to cut over from the app and go back to our heroes. What that means is that we take our deck, we scout the top 2 cards, and we get to prepare 1. Now we can then choose to place the cards at the top or the bottom of our deck. As I've got my weakness here with Bilbo, that definitely wants to be on the bottom. We're going to just slide some cards over, and we're going to prepare quiet, and then put our deck back down. Now, what I'm then going to do is do the same thing for Legolas. We've got Precise Strike and Time of Need, both very good cards. I'll move some stuff over here as well. I'm going to decide to prep Precise Strike, and we'll talk about what these symbols mean, but essentially you can take inspirations to turn them into that success symbol, which is what we really need. Time of Need is not necessarily great. So you know what? I'm gonna keep Time of Need, actually. We're going to be doing more questing around, probably. So we'll do that. I'm going to take this Precise Strike and place it at the top of the deck, guaranteeing me 1 success on a test. So now we've seen how we scout. Let's move back over to the app, and we're going to continue on with what we're doing here. So, an ancient spiral of stairs descends into the earth, carved into an older cave just outside. A carving in some stone warns of danger. Place a search token as indicated. Now we'll move back over to the board and place a search token as indicated, or as close as we can. Then go back to the app and hit continue. So I'm going to go through all of this and then just place all the search tokens as it tells me to. So a tattered sheet of parchment shows faint imprints of an unknown origin. Place search token as indicated. Then we'll have to place tile 100A. So moving over from the app, I will place tile 100A, and at the same time catch up and place the search token. So I'll go back over to the app now. So in the distance, a group of ragtag individuals close the doors of a stone tomb. Could this be your quarry, the thieves you are looking for? Place a person token as indicated. All right, so we're hunting thieves. I'm going to go back over to our camera, and I will place the person token as indicated. Go back to the app, continue on, and we've got more stuff to place. So this is where it gets a little complicated, because we got to try to fill out everything, and I'm going to do my best to keep it all on camera. So I need 204A, and I'm just looking for it right now. It's not always easy to find the tiles. I'm going to do my best to place it as indicated. While keeping everything as best on camera as I can. And it's now placed. Going back to the app. So we have another tile to place, 210A. So I'm just going to continue on here, see everything. And Well, that's perfect because that's everything. That's probably almost as many tiles as I can show you on camera right now. We might have to do some zooming in and out afterwards. So now we're going over to the main camera and we are placing 210A. Now we need to place the 2 exploration tokens as shown on the app. Everything is there. I'm going to continue. And we've got some more information on the app, so I'm going to read it out loud. Pausing to tighten your boots and adjust the weight of your gear. You take a breath before continuing on. Each hero tests 1 spirit, then each hero who passes gains 1 inspiration. All right. Now, going back over to our main camera here, I'm going to test spirit. So Bilbo's spirit is 3. I'm going to move things over a little bit. We've got more room. I do need a discard pile. So I'm going to actually test 1, 2, 3. And as the app said, test spirit 1, meaning I need 1 success. In this case, I did succeed. I got the success symbol here. These are fate symbols, which can be converted into successes using inspiration. I will discard this right here. I will take an inspiration for Bilbo. I will then go over to Legolas. We are going to test his spirit, which is only 2. And oh, what do we know? We got 2 successes. Not a great thing to get early on necessarily. We'll place these over here. Almost off camera, but not quite. That'll be his discard pile. Let's just move everything a little bit more over. I want to keep it separated for everyone so it's clear. And he will also gain an inspiration token. Now, we'll go back over to the app. So we have our objective updated, confront the thieves. And we're now in the action phase. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go back to our main camera. So here I am. So we're going to cut right now because we've done the setup, as you can see. Takes a little bit to get going, but we went through the full setup of the app. And don't forget, there is the collection section of the app, which I didn't talk about. In the collection section, you can add any expansions that you purchase. But what we're then going to teach you guys now is the action phase, the shadow phase, the rally phase, and then hopefully we'll get some enemies soon, because once we get enemies, we'll also show you how to do combat, and I'm going to try to break it all up so that you get a good experience with the game. So keep it right here, and we'll be right back. Now let's take a look at what we can do during the action phase. Heroes have 3 different things that they're able to do. They may move, which means move 2 spaces. They may also interact, which would be interacting with this search token or a threat token, as well as a person token. They may also attack an enemy, for example, if there was an enemy that was in range. Legolas has a ranged weapon, which means he can hit things in an adjacent space. Bilbo would not be able to do that. They would have to move into the same space as the enemy. Now, one thing I do want to mention before I forget, when you are in the same space as an enemy, you will provoke an attack whenever you do anything. Whether it's searching, whether it's moving, you give the enemy a chance to attack you. Now, during your action phase, you may perform any one of those 3 actions twice, or 2 of those separate actions, meaning you can attack and move, you can attack and interact, you can move and interact, any combination of that. Your movement may also be split up, meaning you can move, interact, move. Now, before we go too much further on the action stuff, I want to just take a look at the app itself from the top-down camera. I want to talk about the threat meter. And before we do that, I just want to show you can zoom in, rotate, do some fun stuff with the app. Here's where your settings are. You can save and quit, find the rules. Here's where you can end the action phase. And there's some information about your party, past things that have already gone on in the game, items you have, and if you need to perform a last stand or not, which we'll discuss later on. Now, up here we've got the threat meter. You can see what happens at 15 threat. Something bad happens. Now the way threat is generated is it's 2 per character that we have, 1 per exploration token, as well as 1 per threat token. Now, managing your threat is a big part of the game. If your threat jumps up, you can find yourself losing a mission very early on. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be doing during the action phase. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to have Bilbo move to interact with the person token because of his self-sufficient skill, where he's able to convert the 2 fate symbols to 1 success. And as we already use a success, it's not a bad thing. Now, you may also notice here that there's the hide ability, so that after you test, I can discard this card to hide. There are a few other keywords, and I'm just going to take Bilbo's cards here to show some of them. There is the keyword of rest, which lets you heal 2 damage or 2 fear. You have guard 2, which lets you guard 2 damage by this. And it's important to note these keywords, you have to discard the card to do it. So guard lets you block damage. You also have strike, which lets you discard the card to deal 2 hits when attacking. There's also sprint, which you can discard to move a space for free, for example, without spending on action. So we've taken a quick look at the keywords. Let's see what happens with Bilbo moving and then interacting with this person token. So what I'm just going to do now is make sure that our app is being captured. Now, the app's being captured. So we'll go over to the app. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. We'll move over on it, and we'll interact with the person token. So you note the garb mimics that of Brelanders, but their accents are varied. These are not merely local riffraff. You can also consider what is your best approach. Now, when you're doing this, you want to pick something that makes sense for your character. As Bilbo's a burglar, we're going to try sneak up and eavesdrop. So we need to test agility. And what we're going to do is however many successes we get, we're going to enter that into the app. Now I'm going to cut over to our main camera. And what we're going to see right now is Bilbo has an agility of 3, meaning I'm going to flip over 3 cards, but we must not forget a special ability. Before you interact, look at the top card of your deck. If it's a fate card, gain 1 inspiration. So we'll take a look. It is a fate card, meaning I do gain an inspiration. So we'll do that first. Now I'm going to reveal the top 3 cards in my deck. So I immediately have 1 success, 2 successes, and not able to use self-sufficient, but I can spend 1 inspiration to convert this into a success. These cards will go into my discard pile. Moving back over to the app, we now enter the amount of successes we have, and then we see what happens. So the ruffians are tense, but you overhear them discuss plans to loot 3 other ruins in the area before returning to their lair. Suddenly a crow shrieks and a bandit hisses. Quiet, we have guests. You hear blades drawn and footsteps growing closer. Become hidden, then discard this person token. So now we're getting instructions on the app as to where to place some enemies. So we'll be able to show attacking. Your enemy shows no sign of mercy nor any indication that they will accept the same in return. With malice in their eyes, they raise their weapons, ready to defend what they have stolen. Place 2 ruffians as indicated. Now, I'm going to move back over to our main camera, and we're going to take 2 ruffians and place them in the space. I'm going to go back to the app and just see what happens next. So we have a new objective, which is to defeat the ruffians. Now, Bilbo has become hidden. So I'm going to take the hidden card and place it out there, as we're back on our main camera now. And Bilbo, for example, can potentially provoke an attack. So this is great. I'm not actually going to follow through with it. I just want to demonstrate what provoking is. So let's take a look at what happens. Let's say Bilbo wants to run away. We're going to go to the app. We select an enemy to provoke. As you can see, when I provoke it, it tells me what to do. So a ruffian brandishes a jagged knife. The blade, although rusted in places, looks very sharp. So as you can see, spirit negates. If you don't negate it all, you take 3 damage. Then if you suffer damage from this attack, gain 1 weakness and shuffle it into your deck. Now, what Bilbo would have to do, and going over the main camera, this is just an example, he would have to then test 3 spirit, and you have to block all 3 damage. As you can see in this case, it's not going to happen. He's going to take a lot of damage, and 3 damage is his limit. So as you can see, that is not a good thing. Now, that's just to show you how provoking an enemy would work. I wanted to provide you with that example. So we'll go back over the app, we'll confirm, and essentially the best thing for Bilbo to do now is not move. Now, before that, just to show you, he could have used Hidden to discard all that damage that he would take, which is a very good thing. But he's in a tight spot. Moving back is not necessarily the best thing for him right now. Now, what can Legolas do? Well, Legolas can move and attack, or actually attack twice, because look at where he is. He is actually adjacent to it. But before that, I want to just mention one thing, is how exploration works. So, for example, if Legolas had moved 2, he could move to the space and gain an inspiration token. And then you would go to the app, click the token, and actually, you know what? Sorry, I was going to think about doing it on the app. I'm just going to do it on camera here. So you would basically go, click the token, then the app would tell you something to do. As I'm trying to showcase this just in a proper way, what we'll do is we're going to have Legolas move and attack. So Legolas will not move. He's just going to get closer so you can see how they are joined. And we're going to go through Legolas's attack. So he's got a bow, ranged weapon, meaning he doesn't have to be in the same spot as him. And then he's going to test his agility, which is 4, and we're going to flip over the top 4 cards. And not too great. We actually don't do that much damage, but we do have Time of Need, which we may use, meaning when you use a prepared card, you discard it. It then means we change all of our fate symbols into 2 successes. So not 2 successes, each a success, meaning we have 2 successes. And then what we do is we take a look at our weapon, and we can use each line on the weapon once, meaning that in one attack, if we get 3 successes, Legolas can do up to 7 damage. In this case, though, he can only do 5. So we're going to cut over to the app. What you do now is you select the ruffian, you hit attack, and you apply the amount of hits. Now the app is going to ask you, well, first it tells us to remove a ruffian. You guys will see that when I cut back over to the main camera. But it'll ask if the enemy can attack. As the enemy does not have a ranged weapon, the answer is no, so it cannot retaliate. Now, it'll once again be Legolas' turn. And as we want to protect Bilbo, we're going to try that again. So we're going to reveal, just put these down, the 4 cards of our deck. And lo and behold, we get 2 successes, which is going to be enough to kill the guy. But one thing I want to point out, we've gotten through our deck, meaning if there's any tests that we have to do, chances of us succeeding are very slim. So as you can see, that's just what's left. Keep that in mind. The way you spend your deck, and then when you do tests, you have to reveal all of the cards. You don't have a choice to just reveal 1 or 2. Now we're going to go back to the app. We'll apply the hits. And as you saw, it says remove 1 ruffian, and you or a nearby hero gains inspiration. So what I always like to do, and I'll cut over to the main camera quickly here, so just showcase we've defeated the ruffians. I'm going to give Legolas the inspiration, as Bilbo is an inspiration factory. Legolas getting it is good. Let's take a look at the app again. So sudden movement draws your eye to your supplies. A goblin breaks cover and sprints away, disappearing into a wall of brambles. You follow with haste and find beyond the thicket and a wide valley dotted with a few ruins, but no sign of the creature. Lore increases by 1. So we're getting more tiles that we need to place. I'm going to do my best to move the map around here on the main camera without going off camera here. And still have some room to add the tile, which is tile 200A, which I'm going to try to locate. My tiles have gone a little, so here we go, 200A. goes like this, which is still on camera. And then we actually have another tile, so I'm just going to show you here. It's telling us to place tile 209. Now, as I'm doing this really in a close-up to teach you guys the game, 209 is going to be off camera, but I don't expect to get there really during the how to play, but we're going to place it anyway. I look through my tiles here, all my 200s, 209. It pops up there, cuts over a little bit, but it goes off camera. I'm still going to continue building it. And on the app, you can see where we got to place another tile, one of the 100s. This may be on camera. It's saying 100, 101A. Yeah, we've got the right one. So we'll also place 101A, which I believe is also a little bit cut off. Now, back on the app, you can see it's told us to place the exploration tokens. Now, I will showcase what happens when we actually explore and when we do an interaction with some search tokens. And I forgot to remove this person token, but we'll cut over to the app again, and we hit continue. So this will give us our new objective. What has drawn such a creature here far beyond the reach of any orc stronghold? An armor bore resemblance to that of Mount Graham, but far to the north does that mountain stand. A dark alliance has been formed indeed for such a creature to be summoned here. You must find tracks leading to the enemy's lair to continue. Searching the surrounding area will yield the clues and tracks you need. So we've got our next objective. You're good to go. And as we've acted, even though Bilbo still had one, and I'm back on the main camera here, had one movement, he ended his turn before he got a chance to use it. So what we're then going to do is we're going to cut, but before we cut, I'm just going to show you guys what happens. We end the action phase and go into the shadow phase. Now, we'll cut over to the, you'll see the amount the threat increases, and we then go into the rally phase. So not much happened in the shadow phase because there are no enemies. So we're going to quickly cover the rally phase, but we're going to go through another action phase and then come back to the shadow phase again. Now, when we go into the rally phase, what we need to do is we take our discarded cards, we shuffle them up, and we get to prepare another card. Heroes can have a max of 4 prepared cards out there. I'm going to move these a lot more over here unless stuff starts popping up as we explore. So we're able to scout 2, shuffle up, reveal 2 cards. I get to decide what I want. And I'm already pretty good with wit. I'm going to take the agility because I get an extra bonus. Place this on the top because it's great for Bilbo's skills. And put that right there. Now, I could have discarded Resourceful for Legolas during his turn to gain another inspiration. But we're doing pretty good on that front. So there's no point in doing it. So we're just going to shuffle everything up. Reveal 2 cards, see what we get. Keen Eyes is definitely a card that I really enjoy, so I'm going to take that. And Ancient Wisdom, as we've got some fate, is not too bad. We'll place that right there. And that's essentially the rally phase. Now, there are certain items you can acquire that'll let you do things during the rally phase, like maybe heal damage, but you'll get those later on, and those items you potentially need to spend and deplete, as they can only be used a certain amount of times during an adventure. Now, as we've gone over all this good stuff, I think we're in a good space. So we're going to cut right here. I'm going to come back with a second round of the action phase, and then hopefully have a more interactive shadow phase. And we're back with our second action phase. Now, our threat has gone up, and we need to figure out what we want to do. But I do want to showcase some different things. We've gone through the full rally phase, and I'd like to show you some of these interactions as well as the explorations. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to start with Legolas. Now, what I'm going to do is just put the app in front here so you can see. I'm also going to probably just cut over to it right now. And we're going to search. An ancient spiral of stairs descend into the earth, carved into an even older cave just outside a carving in stone warns of danger. We hit the search function and it tells us what we have options, what we want to do. Stepping lightly down the worn stairs, you come to a winding passage, holes in the floor, slots in the walls, and dark recesses in the ceiling warn of traps of every kind. Navigating the deadly hall will take long and careful work or extreme luck. Now, I'm going to run it because I'm Legolas. That may not be the best idea, but he is agile, and sure enough, it's an agility test. So we're going to cut over the main camera, and we're going to do an agility test. Now we reveal the top 4 cards, and immortality is no good, but I can spend 2 inspiration, which I'm actually going to do, to get 3 successes, which is typically good for the app. Let's cut back over to the application, enter the information. The death trap is perfectly designed and constructed, never offering a moment of rest or consideration. You are near the firing when you realize the mechanism guiding you into an unavoidable convergence of blade and stone. You have but a moment to decide, push forward or back out. I'm charging in. We'll take the hit. Throwing caution aside, you spring forward, hoping to bypass the master stroke before it can trigger. This to the architect had planned for, so you suffer 4 damage and 2 fear. But, you land on the far side of the death trap, pushing open the old stone door. You hear a mechanism disarm behind you within a small room awaits. We're going to search. The stones of the room seem untouched by years, polished granite, somehow gleaming the heart of the earth. In the center of the room is a cairn of treasure, and one item in particular seems suited to your quest. Gain the Wingfoot title immediately prepared, and discard this search token. Well, that is really interesting. And we gain the title of Wingfoot. Now, I don't have the titles down here with me, as they are currently sleeved, but we pick which hero gained it, which would be Legolas. We're going to confirm. We've also gained the torch. Wow. This is definitely a little more interesting than I planned it to be, and that's really good. So we also have a torch. So you are a nearby hero. Now, I'm going to cut over to the main screen. So we've got Legolas and Bilbo. So either one of them could equip it, and I'm just going to finish this off with continue. The search token is gone. And it wasn't necessarily a good thing to take that much damage, but you know what? It's actually going to let me showcase a last stand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show the last stand, finish Legolas's turn, then we're going to take a quick cut, and this will be a 2.1 of our how to play. But Legolas has taken 4 damage. So just to symbolize, and 2 fear. So to symbolize that, I'm just going to place the 4 damage here. Such a ways that you can see it. It should be on camera. We're going to place the 2 fear. And as you can see from, that might have slid off camera, sorry. He is a max of 6 fear and 4 damage, meaning we need to initiate a last stand. Now I'm going to remove the search token. And we're going to cut over to the app and showcase a last stand. So what do? Well, Legolas. Also, we gained lore earlier on. Lore is what you use to buy your skills. Just wanted to mention that before I forget. We pick Legolas. We click confirm to perform a last stand. We say if it's damage or fear. This is damage. So we must test might and gain 1 success to pass. So what we're going to do now is go over to our main camera. We're going to test Legolas's might, which I know is 2. We reveal it. Luckily enough, we gain a success. What we're then going to do is go back to the app. We hit pass. So we discard all face down fear and gain 1 inspiration and continue the adventure. Now, one mistake that I made before we can do all this stuff, because it says suffer fear, we actually suffer all that damage face up. I got a little excited about doing the last stand, so let's go back and do it properly and let's just see what happens. So this is so each nearby hero flips 1 fear face up, then flip this card face down. So this would be a face down fear. Sorry, face down damage. Flip this card face down. Suffer 1 face down fear, then flip this card face down. So in Legolas's case, he actually would have taken 3 fear. So we're going to, let me just double check. Is it 1 face down fear? Okay, so we can just put that fear on him right away. And then the last damage, flip 1 damage face up and 1 fear face up, then discard this card. So as we're doing it, we discard this card. We flip the fear face up, which tells us to flip another one. So it's a little complicated. So we flip 1 face up. So we suffer another. Unfortunately, it was this one we picked. Suffer another face down fear. And then we flip this down. I want to just grab this out. Damage can be a little confusing. Yeah, so we flipped everything properly. All right. So we get that damage. If I made a mistake, it might only have been 1 card, but in any case, we have these other 3 fear that we have to suffer. So we keep this card face up, and if you would discard a face up fear, flip this one face down instead. Flip this card face down and flip this card face down. I know this is a little messy. We're just going to put this stuff like this. Let's go back to, I'm just going to show the app. So it says discard all face down damage, gain 1 inspiration, and continue the adventure. So what I'm going to do, we get rid of all of our face down damage. This is face down fear, actually. So we'll just discard this. And what I'm going to do is just put that on top of each other. And we're going to put all of Legolas's damage just right here, blocking the space a little bit. I know it's not the cleanest, but you can see what he has. It's all fear. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to take a quick cut. I'm going to go get the items we got because that's perfect. I'm really excited to be able to show you guys some of this stuff. I didn't think it was going to pop up with the app, as you never know where you're going to go. And we're going to be back then with our 2.2 of our How to Play. And we're back continuing our adventure. Now, you may be wondering why I didn't have the cards prepared. I've been sleeving and organizing the game and really didn't expect to find an item. And just for space purposes, I'm going to give Bilbo the torch. And I'm going to prepare Wingfoot. You know what I'm actually going to do, guys? Just so that it's a little easier for everyone to see. And I'm going to take Legolas's Fear, place it next to him, but just off camera over here. I'll bring it back if it becomes relevant. I want to prepare the Wingfoot title, which is very cool. So after you sprint with the skill, remove it from the adventure. But I now have a sprint 3, which is very good. Going to let me move across the map. Now Legolas is able to actually do a lot of different things. Oh, and this got bumped. Apologize. Don't know when I actually bumped that. Probably when I was messing around with all the fear. But let's just take Wingfoot and we're going to discard it from the adventure to sprint 3. So we can move 1, 2. And now we're going to cut over to the app. We're going to explore the space. So Legolas gains the exploration token as inspiration, as you can see on the main camera. Now back to the app. We're instructed to place a threat token as a dense fog blankets the area. And that's all that then happens. Well, we're going to place the threat token here. Legolas is going to continue his sprint. And here's us 1, 2, 3, meaning we can still take another action. And we'll go over to the iPad. We're going to interact with the threat token. We need to test agility. Now, this may be a good or a bad thing. We shall see. We reveal the top 4 cards. And I revealed 5 cards there, so this is the wrong one. Sorry. In this case, I will spend an inspiration again. As you can see, we've got 2 successes, 1 fate that I can turn into a success. We'll discard these. Move those over. Go back to the application. So you pass over hazardous ground without falter or pause. Threat decreases by 2. Discard this threat token. So, wow. Good stuff. The heroes are playing very strong, doing some great things. Now, it's Bilbo's turn. And you've seen a little bit about exploration. Let's do another test. So back over on our application, we're going to search this token. So a Tower Sheet apartment shows faint imprints of an unknown origin. We need to test wisdom, which is really not his best skill. So we get, first of all, we take a look at this, making an inspiration, and we're going to draw 2, which can either be 1 success or 2 successes, provided that we spend our inspiration. But I'm going to use self-sufficient in this case to turn both of these into 1. I don't really like it, but I want to show what happens if we fail. So over on our app screen, we enter the 1 success. You cannot quite translate the runes, but their power is obvious. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, then place them on the top or bottom of your deck, then discard this search token. Well, it's not that great of a thing, so over on this camera, I just discarded the search token. Look at the top 2 cards. Doesn't really matter as there's nothing else that we can do as we've moved to and search, which brings about the end of our hero's action phase. So we'll go to the application and let's see if we get a more involved shadow phase this time. So we end the action phase. Now this is also the phase where enemies may attack. Our threat increases by 8. And we've got some stuff going on right now. So from a nearby tree line, you hear the warble of an unfamiliar bird. Then without further warning, arrows whistle through the air around you. Each hero tests agility. Each hero who fails suffers 2 face-down damage. We also get some enemies that show up. So let's take a minute here and let's test our agility. So in this case, Bilbo. We'll start with Legolas. He doesn't have as many cards, so we get 2. And I really don't want to take any damage. I also neglected to do this, but this is a perfect time as I spent resources to have discarded Resourceful to gain an inspiration, but you give me 2 inspirations to block all the damage. He's already hurting. Don't want him to take any more. Bilbo needs to test his agility. And yeah, my agility was 4, meaning I go through all my cards. If there's anything else I've got to test, Legolas is done. Now, Bilbo tests 3. He only negates 1. Remember, each success, if I wasn't clear, negates 1 damage. So I have to spend an inspiration to negate the other face down damage. But he can only take 3. That's pretty key. And these now get discarded. So the app told us to place the Hungry Warg. We're going to do that. And then we're going to go back to the app screen and show you what else happens. And that's all we need to do. Now, we go back into the rally phase. And we're going to continue playing the game. You now have a very good idea as how the game plays. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue on the app. And we're going to skip over our action phase right now. So just so you have something to see on camera, I want to show you what happens when enemies can attack. So we are literally just going to end the action phase to trigger the shadow phase. So what then happens is, if the enemy will tell us what it can do, it would either be no target if it can't attack the closest hero. So as you can see, it wants to attack Legolas. Move 3 to attack Legolas. That can't do it. We then follow the closest hero, meaning it could move 3 and attack Bilbo. If there's no target, you're going to click no target, and it'll tell you to move 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4 towards the closest hero. So in this case, let's go with the attack. Now, I'm going to go over to the app for this part. So we're going to click attack. And it tells you, a beast's yellow fangs glisten with fresh blood. Might negates 2 damage and 1 fear. So that's what we have to do. We're going back to our camera here. Bilbo needs to test might. He gets 1 success. And then he gets 1 burn-in, meaning he only passes one of these things. Well, Bilbo happens to be hidden. Now, Bilbo can discard hidden to prevent all of his damage, which is what we're going to do. And he's going to use this success to prevent fear. But wait, he's got quiet. In this case, if you would discard hidden, you may gain 1 inspiration, discard the skill instead, which is going to do keep hidden and gain his inspiration. And that, now we're just going to go back to the app so you see what happens. The shadow deepens, though hope yet endures. Threat increases by 8. It goes back into the rally phase. and then the game would continue on with another action phase. So there you have it. We've really showcased bit by bit how you play the game. So we had some cards that slid off camera there, but I don't want to take any longer than this. It was already a longer video than I wanted it to be, but we went in depth on Journeys in Middle Earth, and we're going to be going in depth on the review as well. So I'm going to go over Get by Julie's side because we are a fellowship, and we're going to give you our review of the game. So Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle Earth. Now, for reviewers that did not catch the beginning of our review, you may have just skipped to the end. We are going to be reviewing the game itself, how it works, the mechanics, what we thought about it. Then we're going to be also reviewing the full campaign. That's right. We spent how long do you think, Julie?
A day at least.
A day? In terms of time, probably close to 20 to 24 hours playing through all 14 missions of the starting campaign, which I believe is the Bones of Eriador. Might be getting that wrong. It's a little difficult to keep all of the names straight. That being said, I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who will start our conversation about the game itself.
I was looking forward to this one. When you told me there was a Lord of the Rings cooperative game coming, I was looking forward to it. I've loved the Lord of the Rings books. I love the Lord of the Rings movies. So I thought this was great, and especially when you described it as an app-driven game, I thought, okay, maybe this will finally usurp Descent as my favorite game. And a little bit of a spoiler, it doesn't. Okay, but that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. It just there were some things about the game, I would say the mechanics of the game, that I didn't love as much as Descent. And maybe it's because Descent was the first game that I really enjoyed, but I think there's a lot of things I compare to it. There are a lot of games that I compare to it, and this one, there's some mechanics that I didn't love as much.
No, and that's a fair comparison. They are two different styles of games, and we do play a fair bit of dungeon crawl adventure games here. This is far more on the adventure game side than the dungeon crawl side. You're not going to be gaining experience by killing monsters, which you would in Descent. You're going to be leveling up and powering up your characters through explorations and interactions with things on the map throughout the game, and then succeeding at the campaign.
Well, and I think it's a balance, and that's part of the thing with this this game is that there's not one. You can't just stick with one style of play. You can't just explore or interact or focus on exploring or focus on interacting, because what works at different stages of the game does not work throughout it. No. So there really is a balance of fighting the enemies, exploring, interacting, and it's really about managing the threat level.
Yeah.
And the threat does not flow necessarily the same way throughout the game. You
really have to pay attention to the threat, exploring, managing the threat, trying not to hit those high thresholds that are going to trigger really bad things, can be the difference between winning and losing the campaign. Not the campaign, that specific adventure. And I gotta say, I think just on the threat meter, do we both like it, don't like it? What did you think about the threat meter?
I thought it was frustrating because it didn't go up necessarily in a very consistent way, as I was just saying. Sometimes we'd go exploring, and you explore somewhere and it would open like
5 more places,
5 to 10 more places, and we'd have that in Descent where you're like, do you really want to open that door? Because there could be monsters on the other side of the door. Well, in this case, do you really want to explore? Because you may open nothing, but you also could open 10 different regions, and then that has a negative impact on the threat.
So you've got to balance it out. And I would say I like the fact that the threat meter is there. I like the way that you can control it, but as you said, the control can be a little bit random at times. And as all missions are randomly generated, you never know what's going to happen. There'll be some similarities between like the first mission each time you play, maybe the same first starting tile, but after that, what you're going to see, where you're going to go, it's up to the app itself.
So, I like the characters. I like the they're different and they have different powers. I like that they're the same as the books.
See, just to keep our conversation going so that we don't have both of our opinions, I actually disagree. I was disappointed that it was the characters from the books.
But that's the whole Lord of the Rings story.
It is, but I was thinking that with this Journeys in Middle Earth, we would get some new characters, and or characters that were like maybe minor characters in the book. Some cool characters like Bjorn, the shapeshifter. I thought he was a pretty cool character. Maybe even seeing some of the dwarves again that went with Bilbo to the Lonely Mountain.
And maybe you'll see that in the expansions. Like I said, there's some characters that we didn't have in this one. That we had some smaller characters. I would have liked some of the bigger characters come in as well.
But the point that I had is because we had the movie characters, I think we might have fell asleep a little bit and not taken advantage of the other characters like Elena and I believe it's Beravor, the two female characters who they pulled from the lore, not from the books or the movies. Are definitely a little less present, but they had some pretty cool abilities, like the Pathfinder ability really lets you move across the map, and as we just played like single class, I think we might have missed out on having some fun with those characters. But like I said, I'm not unhappy that we got the Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, and Bilbo. I love playing Bilbo. It was perfect. I just thought that with this kind of game, especially for the two new characters they picked, it would have been nice to have maybe fresh faces and then got the other ones, but that's just a difference of opinion.
I also was a little disappointed with the minis. I mean, the orcs, excuse me, the orcs, two different type of orcs look pretty similar to me. I mean, looking at them, you said that one.
No, it's more the orcs and the ruffians. The marauders, the orc marauders, and the human ruffians, because they're both sort of standing out in a similar pose, can be difficult to tell apart when you're looking at them. Also, that gray color just means that when there's a pile of them, they definitely do get lost in the shuffle. So that's one thing that I will say. I like the detail on the minis. Definitely good. Overall, no complaints. But for finding them and picking them out, maybe it would have been better with a different color or maybe slightly different poses.
I thought that the tiles were interesting. That being said, I didn't think the art was that distinctive. So it's interesting how you can place them because
the
hexagonal shape, you can place them so many different ways. But the artwork on them are very similar. I mean, some of them are underground or in, those ones look different, but the tiles themselves kind of blend together. They kind of just all look the same.
No, and I get the reason why, because we're supposed to be journeying across a similar land, but it does make it a little painful to find the tiles, place them, and keep going.
You definitely have to look at the numbers.
And wasn't always quite clear how to place them in the map.
The other thing, I mean, I like the idea of playing with cards and that you have your deck. It's a little bit like the deck building that I like.
And it's also like Runebound, which you've only played one time with regards to getting your successes. It seems to be that's the mechanic that they copy.
Yeah, so especially at the beginning when you have a smaller deck, I thought it was very frustrating, especially with Gimli where I'm using 4 cards because I'm using my might to fight. I'm cycling, I tried to fight something twice because that's what Gimli does. And then obviously the monster gets to defend himself, and then I, try to defend myself, and I run out of cards. I don't have enough cards in my deck to be able to properly defend myself.
No.
So for that, I found it frustrating. I would have liked to be able to have, that's where I missed the dice, that I would have liked to be able to use the cards.
Well, separate, like attack and defense. And that was the advantage of having dice in games like Descent. I played Batman recently. That's where you have attack dice, defense dice. Let the dice decide you're not going through a deck and that could potentially run out of resources. And
I also,
sorry, I just wanted to mention in the how to play, or if you've just jumped to the review, you didn't see the how to play. That fact is illustrated very clearly during the how to play, where I almost run through my whole deck a couple of times.
So as you were saying, you gain things, you power up as you interact. So you gain titles or items as you're interacting, and the items you get to keep open and get to deplete them. So it's like having them in your backpack or whatever. But the titles get shuffled into your deck, which means that you don't know if you're going to get to use them or not. And that I found a little bit frustrating. I would have liked to be able to do like you do in Descent and exhaust those titles. Like I understand the reason with the cards and certain of you.
Yeah, with the faith and the successes and all of that.
Yeah, I understand. And I understand having to you scout and you get your cards and you have to pick the ability that you want to have prepped and available. I get that, but I acquired some pretty cool titles.
And you didn't even use one of them.
I didn't even get to use them because they were just never coming out. And yes, it's like the luck of the draw when you're chucking dice as well. But I just felt like that was limiting the character a little bit.
What I would have liked, actually, now that you bring that up, and something that we've never discussed, I never thought of before, I would have really liked it, and this would be a nice combination, is if, as you gained your titles, you were able to use them at the start of the game. They're prepped, like extra cards. At the start of the game, you have these titles, you've adventured, you have this power, and then after you use them, they go into your deck.
Yeah, I
think that would have been really cool. Instead of removing them from the adventure, you start with them, you can use them to do great things, because some of them, and once again referring to How to Play, you saw how Legolas in How to Play acquired the Wingfoot title. He almost died. Like, he almost got killed to get it. It would be nice to have that at the start of every adventure, to be like, I did this, I survived, I'm Wingfoot, or, I'm the Flame Wielder, and just have that little ability. I 100% agree with you on that. I didn't love the way titles worked as just a standard card.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I would say, because I liked everything else. It sounds like I'm just harping on the negative. I'm just saying the things that irritated me or that I disliked a little bit from the game. I think the other thing that was frustrating is, and it's not just Lord of the Rings. It's just that in this particular case, it happened several times to say, if you fail this mission, that's the end. And it's not much fun to know that, and I guess maybe it's reality. If you fail, you die, you're done. That's the way it works. But it's just for a long campaign like this, that if you're halfway through, or you think you're halfway through, I think we were 5 chapters into the campaign.
9 chapters is when we started falling under threat because of the 2 that we failed.
You basically, that's it. And it doesn't make it much fun. You don't want to take any risk whatsoever, because you don't want it to end. It would be nice to have that option to redo that chapter.
Well, here's what you can do, and I only realized this after we completed the campaign, and I don't recommend this. I'm just going to point it out, is that the game will auto-save, basically right before you either win the game, it's your last mission, or before you die. Basically, you can just cheat and get on to the next mission, potentially, if you've lost the campaign. But that being said, that's not fun. And I 100% agree with Julie. I have no issue with the game saying, if you lose the campaign. Played plenty of video games. I've lost. I've seen a terrible ending where my characters died, failed to save the world. But you know what I've done? I've gone back to a previous save. I've reloaded, and I've tried again. And that's one of the things that I dislike the most about the game, is the fact that we can't have multiple saves of our same group.
Or even, there's a penalty. You lose X, if you start it over,
I get why they're doing that, because it's branching campaign, right? So you lose this mission, you go this way, and then you may never get to see this mission, which is cool. But as you pointed out, you're 9 missions in, 10 missions in. You don't want to have to necessarily lose and be like, I'm done. Well, I have to start all the way over. I'm 10 hours backwards in the past. Believe me, I've screwed up. I've corrupted an RPG save. That game has sat on my shelf for 6 months before it ever went back into my console. And that's the way I feel. So I completely agree with you. There should be something as simple as a save game. Where would you like to save the game? Save in slot 2. Because I'd like to have some more control. I have no problem playing losing pass. But for the last, 4 missions, we were kind of like, well, what happens if we're going to lose? Well, I go, do you want to replay the next 12 missions? And you're like, I don't want to replay 12 missions.
Yeah. So, the thing I can say as well, though, on a more positive note, I think it's interesting that things like threat tokens can be good, in the sense that they can lower the threat risk.
You can gain some cool stuff from them as well.
Or they can be bad. And that's part of the game. It means that you have to go adventure and you have to go check it out. And some search tokens are a complete waste of time, and others are pretty cool. So,
And one thing I just want to mention is, because I like that you brought up the search tokens, and what I think I'll do is, because you've pretty much covered everything I dislike about the game. I'll talk about what I like, and we'll do the nice back and forth that way. We're just having a nice conversation here. Some of the search tokens, passing them can be ridiculously hard. We had one that almost required 5 successes, which is like a one-time shot out of your deck to succeed. And I did find it very difficult to succeed enough times. Depending on the luck of the draw, I would much rather roll dice, have abilities to reroll dice, than the way the drawing of the deck worked.
There was one villain in one of the later campaigns, I can't remember which one it was, that we killed him, I think 8 times before.
Yes. So there is a villain that you were going to encounter early on called Gogotar, or whatever it is. I don't know.
Gogotar, I think, yes.
I can't pronounce it. That was the guy, and we ran into him again. But it took so many times. We had other options, but the way our characters were built was just kind of like, let's do that.
It's he has X amount of health, and your objective is to defeat him. So what do? You try to defeat him, try to kill him. And it's not like he had 8 health or something like that, and he was easy to kill.
He did later on, but the first few times it was higher.
It literally took 8 times to kill him, and it gets frustrating because at this point you're like, okay, am I missing something? Is there something else that we were supposed to do in order to defeat him? And in the end, there wasn't. He just needed to go down that many times.
No, I think there were some things we could have done to have weakened them, so he might have gone down like after 2 or 3 times, but it wasn't very clear.
So that was part of what I found was frustrating. Mm-hmm. But also, like you said, I agree with you that some of the challenges, it's near impossible for certain characters to pass
at certain points. We did not get items and titles to mission 8 or 9. The power increase in this game is slow. And that being said, after going through the whole campaign, I can see why when it came to some of the items, because otherwise it would have been too powerful earlier on in the campaign. But items are a big factor. There was a lot of really cool stuff that we were able to do with some items later on, and we spent over half the campaign having I think my rope, and that was about it, because we just didn't get lucky in terms of getting the right characters in the right spot with the right number of successes. That's actually why I was saying that I was a little disappointed about the characters, because I believe Bearvor is a Pathfinder, and then looking at their abilities, they have a lot of sprints, a lot of movement, that then will also let them do interacts. So that makes a huge difference. Now, I think we've covered a lot of the negative aspects of the game. Let's talk about the positives. I think it's good to switch everything over, because I think when we're talking about the campaign itself, it'll be very positive. This game drips Tolkien. This is the world of the Lord of the Rings. When it comes to the art on the cards, just the weakness art, when Arrogant is a picture of Saruman, it is fantastic. I love the feel. Even though the art on the tiles is not the best at times, it definitely gives you the feeling that you are in Middle Earth. I do love also the character art. I thought was just excellent. I think it might be reusing some of the character art from the Lord of the Rings, the living card game, which we do have, and you guys might see in the near future. But it was really cool. I definitely felt like I was in Middle Earth, and the theme, 100% well done. I don't know if I would enjoy this game as much if it wasn't for the theme. Even just the background music for the app was very reminiscent of the music in the movies, and it really set the mood.
Agreed.
And I actually enjoy the fact that this was an exploration game versus a dungeon crawl. I would have liked to have a little bit more reward to killing the enemies, to maybe find some items, get a little bit more.
I would have liked a little bit more from the search tokens, even if it's not items. I just feel like we weren't getting much from our interactions.
No, sometimes it was just one inspiration, and it was like, well, I could have gotten inspiration and lower threat. So it's a mixed bag. And like I said, I liked how they worked. I enjoyed the exploration aspect. I think maybe it could have been a weakness of our party, just the way that it was designed, because we just played purely one class. And that's where I think the game has an incredible strength. But for average or more casual gamers, it might also have a weakness. There is clearly a best character build that you'd have to go through. Now, the way to do that would maybe be starting off with Burglar, buying some burglar cards, switching the Pathfinder, adding some Pathfinder cards, or mixing Hunter and Pathfinder, mixing up all the different roles to get the best abilities and create an incredible combo. Now, that's something that we did not do, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what, we're not going to do it. But it's a really cool aspect of the game. And I really want to highlight that I never thought I would see a game that had like multi-classing in an app-based like adventure game. So great on you, FFG. If you want to look for some of the strongest builds, I'm sure they're going to be showing up on Board Game Geek. Now, just to take it a little bit back in the negative, and this is just a minor gripe, there are a lot of small, finicky rules. And while the quick reference guide does a good job, a player aid would have been nice to just really break down some of the things, because during our play of the game, it all probably balanced out because we had some things to our detriment, which made starting off very annoying. I felt Legolas was incredibly underpowered, and then I realized, well, he's supposed to be preparing this card. They gave him one inspiration to start, which was a big difference. We were also negating damage incorrectly, using one success to negate all damage. So balances out. Just make sure you go through the rule book, take a look at stuff, and get those, the small rules. Maybe there'll be a player aid up at Board Game Week. As of the time of recording this, we haven't checked, or it may have just come out and I might have missed it. But other great stuff about the game. This is a long game. This is an expensive game, but it is a long game. You have a lot of content in this box. Also, the way that the app randomizes everything, you've got a ton of replayability just with the base campaign itself. I could see us taking this back out and going through the Bones of Arnor campaign again. Now, not anytime soon, but with different characters, multi-classing different abilities, I really think it would be a lot of fun. And the characters feel, at least the ones that are from the books, movies, they feel like the characters from the books and the movies. So once again, it really does a fantastic job in the setting. And I have to say, I really do enjoy the game. But as we went through in a lot more detail, and I think one of the reasons why we're not talking as much about the positives is because, when you play a game, the negatives stand out. And we're also going to talk a lot more about stuff that we liked, and we get into the overall campaign experience, which I think is really what takes this game up a notch. And the fact that there's an expansion coming out in Q3, and we're getting 11 more missions with I think it's like a $15 US expansion. That's pretty phenomenal. So I gotta say, there's a lot of value in this box. And also, there's actually, I'm gonna shake it a little bit, there's a lot of room. I thought it'd make noise. There's a lot of room to add stuff into the box. So storage-wise, it's another plus. But overall, I'd say we're both fairly satisfied with the game itself. So Julie, just the gameplay, like what would you rate the game?
Without considering the campaign?
Yeah, just how would you rate the game?
A 7.5.
See, I go a little lower. I'm going to probably say it's closer to 6.5, 7 for me without the campaign. And we're going to talk about it right now. So I'm just making this for myself or those viewers that want to take a break. We're going to just take a quick cut. We're going to be right back with the campaign review. So here we are, 14 missions later, successful adventurers. We made some mistakes along the way. We had some fun. We almost died quite a few times. What did you think of the Bones of Arnor campaign? I know that's what I'm calling it. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments below, but just haven't had time to look it up.
I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's very much Lord of the Rings. It felt like we were living a book of the Lord of the Rings. There was a lot of aspects where you really get to, I'm going to be like Aragorn, or I'm going to be like Gimli, and I'm going to make a choice. You have to interact with something or somebody, and you have to take it that way. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. There was a couple things, like I said, you want to call it campaign, or do you want to call it gameplay, where, villains just didn't die, or things were, not great. I think that's more gameplay than story. Story-wise, I think it was a great story. I think it was, very thematic.
I just think it had a little slow start, though, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's very token.
That is true. You know what? I can't fault that because I remember the first time I tried to read The Fellowship of the Ring, I was like, "What am I reading and why?"
So I mean, there's description and what it looks like and how things are, and it really felt like we were living it, and I thought that was cool. And honestly, we just talked about our score of the game. I think for me it's hard to disassociate the campaign from the gameplay itself. I think one of the things I like about the game is that campaign, and that's what adds to it. So it's really hard to disassociate them. I think it's a major strength of the game. I think this is what makes it what it is, and I think they did an excellent job with that story and the campaign.
And I like how the story gets deeper and deeper the more you go into it. You start with a very surface level adventure. We're trying to find some thieves that stole some stuff. Next thing you know, we are on a quest. We're finding out about dark forces that are now operating in Eriador. And what I really do enjoy is it goes deep into the lore. Now, there's definitely Tolkien loreists out there that know way more about Eriador, the different kingdoms of like Anuminus. I believe that's how it's pronounced. But you get to experience like just about everything that you could think of in a Lord of the Rings game. You've got wights, there are wargs, there's orcs, there's goblins. We're dealing with the undead. There is some mystical
hill
powers.
Trolls.
Yes, and of course the hill troll. You had a lot of fun fighting that hill troll.
Yeah, I don't really want to give too much away about the campaign because I think that's part of the fun as well of living it and being able to see it and have stuff come up. But I definitely agree with what you're saying, that you get deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole.
And I noticed that because when you started with them, you were like, okay, that was fun. And then as the story kept going, you're like, oh, yeah, let's take out another game. Let's take out another game. I also liked how the campaign...
Let's take out another game. Let's continue to the next chapter,
yeah, sorry,
basically.
Continue playing. I meant, when you're looking at the game experience of the campaign, I love jumping from the journey map to the battle map. And I'm considering that part of the campaign because nothing says that they have to do battle maps and journey maps in future campaigns.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think there's much more for me to say. I don't think there was really anything negative about the campaign. I thought it was very much Lord of the Rings, and I enjoyed it. And I agree. I enjoyed the fact that there was a battle map where you're basically, battling more than anything else. But I enjoyed it.
And what I liked about the battle map is there was still some stuff with like elements of the story. The one where when you're in when you're in an inn is very cool. If you get to experience it, that's all I want to say. Keep that in mind. The game definitely does a fantastic job of creating a campaign, giving you a nice long experience that you're going to want to play. Potentially, if this is one of the few games you have, you can play it again and again. And definitely try different characters, try doing different things, interacting with different tokens. And I felt that the way the story goes in the campaign, it does try to play to almost each different character's strengths. There are some times where you really want to be using a burglar or someone that can move. There's other times where you want to have your guardian, your guy with the axe, charging in. And that's something that very few games do very well. There is often, just going back to Descent, which we've referenced a lot, we have all of the Descent content. There are definitely some incredible optimal character builds in that game. Actually, one of the campaigns we were playing Shadows of Nerikal, we stopped playing it because of the character that I picked was just not fun compared to some of the other warriors, where, as in this game, I think it's more the classes versus the characters, and the fact that you can mix everything up differently can really let you have your own unique campaign experience that I think will really make you feel like you're in the Lord of the Rings. And that's all we have to say about it. So let's go ahead and give our review of the campaign.
For me, it's an 8. 8.5.
8.5? I'd actually give the campaign a 9 in terms of just the storytelling, where we got, and all the little elements. I can see why there are definitely some reviewers out there that have given this game like sort of a lower score. I would not have given the campaign that high of a score like 3-4 missions in. You really have only like gotten to the tip of the iceberg, just like in the Fellowship of the Ring. Now, so for this whole package, the Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, what do you say?
It's an 8 for me.
It's an 8 for you?
As much as there were things that irritated me, I did enjoy it a lot. And I think the campaign added a lot to it and kind of made up for some of the weaknesses or irritants of the game.
So I'm going to give it a 7.5. I gave the campaign a high score. That's why I'm giving it a 7.5. I'd almost give it a 7 because, as Julie said, there are definitely some irritants. The simple ability to not be able to save your game is one of those things that knocks it down almost a full point for me. If we could have our own save slots to just, control our own destiny more, because essentially we're playing Folklore right now. If we completely screw up in Folklore, we can just reset and restart an entire mission if we really wanted to be, and not ruin our experience. So what time is it now, Julie?
Well, it's time to remind people that you'll see links appear
Yes.
for other reviews that we've done. I don't know what Jason's going to put. Surprise!
Probably something that is app related or Dungeon Crawl related, or maybe definitely in the future. There'll be more Lord of the Rings content out there. We will definitely be diving in and doing a campaign review of the second campaign once we get it.
And also, as always, you can like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification button to know when we have some new content for you. But other than that, it's time to grab our drinks.
Yes. And did you mention the social media
No,
feeds
that's
and
your
my
job.
crazy Instagram? So we've grabbed our drinks. Take a look down below. Social media feeds, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all over that stuff. You cheers me before I said grab your best friend.
It's okay.
Okay, so you can take us out then.
Keep playing games.
Keep playing games.